Okay, good evening. Right, so tonight we're going to be doing Sculpt Feena for Crystal Collapse. So if you just let me grab the image that we're going to be using as reference. So Alex, our artist, has done another cracking job on Feena. I hope I've saved it down actually. Got the original artwork for. Let me just go back into my messages and just grab the updated art. I'll show you what we're dealing with. Okay, so Feena, she is a catfolk mage. She is she's a healer, and I believe she lives in some kind of like foresty kingdom. So she's kind of like a wood elf kind of character, except not with the wood elves. She's got cat ears and is part cat. Okay, so let's just pull her up now. So, why did I just say that? Downloads. Right, so there you go. Oh, no, there you go. So there's Feena. You see her on the right hand side of the screen now. So she's the character that we're going to be working on for tonight. Let me just pull the character up. So I've got her on my other screen, so I can see her properly and clearly. There you go. There's your. Oh, it's about the same size as the image you got anyway, so that's fine. So you can see she's got the kind of wood elf type feel about her. Quite natural aesthetic. And I'm actually going to be doing the pose as per the character you can see on the screen, the illustration, because it just feels right for her. Okay, so we're going to start with just getting the torso shape properly. Actually, we'll start with getting the scaling correct, because the these models are 40mm tall. So I just need to shrink my ruler down a little bit until 40mm is at the eye line. So I've got 10, 20, 30, 40. So I need to bring this ruler into perfect. Okay, so yeah, so these larger notches on the ruler here, they are the 10mm increments. So this is the 40mm mark here. So this being level with the eyes puts her at 40mm scale, which is perfect for what we're working with. She was at 32mm scale prior to that. Now that I've scaled that, I can move this ruler off to the side. I'm just going to hide that because I don't actually need it. This is 25mm normally, but because I've changed the ruler size, this is actually slightly larger. I'm only going to use it in terms of actually making sure that we've got a completely flat plane for her to work on. Plane, rather. Okay, so here now. Let's see what we need to do. Oh, hey Martin, hi Tracy. Hi Grace, how you doing? Hope you're having a lovely evening. Right then. So this one's for you, Grace. Okay. Do a nice little cat lady. Okay, right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the body, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to just do a Dynamesh on everything, which will basically bring all the arms and legs and everything all together. It gives me that. Now, that isn't much use to me at the moment. It's not that great for what you're buying now, Martin. some more Hero Quest goodies, or I'm just going to make sure I've got dynamic tessellation on so I can just get these bits filled in. I want to make sure these are fairly solid so I can use these to extract clothes from. So I don't want any big gaps and holes in the body. Okay, so the muscles are going to get toned down significantly before we go to the finished model. A bit of Pokemon, eh? I love a bit of Pokemon. We're going to be doing our little one's room. So Jacob, his room at the moment, we've done it all Marvel, which has been like that for the last couple of years. So we're talking about doing his bedroom in kind of like Nintendo video game characters. So he's already got a load of Pokemon stuff. He's got a little bit of he's got a little Sonic the Hedgehog toy, a couple of Super Mario things. Got the Legend of Zelda. What do you call it? The Hero Sword, the Legend Sword from Legend of Zelda. He's got all of those kind of things in his room already. We're talking about his bedroom wardrobe. So we were talking. He loves Kirby. We've been playing. Is it Kirby's Lost Kingdom or something like that? The newish one on the Mr. and Mrs. Crafting. Good evening. It is here. Hence the whiskey. So I've just got the kids to bed, and this is well earned today. Trust me. Yeah, so we're talking about obviously the Kirby Lost Kingdom. It's one of his favourite games at the moment, and there's a thing called mouthful mode where Kirby sucks up like large items like cars and things. So, thank you both. Kirby sucks up all these like massive things like cars and like signs and things into his mouth, and basically like they wear him. Oh, fantastic! How's she getting on with it? She done anything nice? Do you want any? Do you want me to do a little bit of feedback with you on it, or? I'm very happy to have a little look over anything you've done and give you a bit of feedback if you want to kind of hit me up on the Discord channel. So yeah, so I say with the Kirby thing, what we're going to do is we're going to do mouthful mode on Jacob's wardrobe in his bedroom. It's a start. Downloading it is the first step of many. So yes, we're going to wrap his the top half of his wardrobe in like pink vinyl, kind of like self-adhesive wrap, and then put a couple of eyes where the door handles are, a couple of red feet up on the top of the wardrobe, so it looks like Kirby's mouthfuled his wardrobe. So I'll be posting photos of that once it's done. It should be funny. Yeah, he's great. He's great, Kirby, isn't he? A Kirby drobe, yeah. That's it. Just need Jacob to like have it spit his clothes out at him in the morning. Then when he's getting dressed, I'm just gonna smooth out the stomach a little bit here. Just give her a little bit of make her a little bit less muscular for the purposes of getting the clothes kind of formed up. It's all just stuff I don't need at the moment. I've still got the original muscular base mesh underneath. So yeah, Mr. Crafting. I don't know if the wife's got a graphics tablet, but it's massively helpful if you're doing ZBrush. I'm not entirely sure you could really do ZBrush without one. But you can get away with like you don't have to have one with a screen on it. You could use something like an Intuos or something like that. When I first started, I actually had it was called a Wacom Bamboo, I think. Mum's the word. Yeah, I had a Wacom Bamboo when I first started sculpting, and it was only about 25 quid or something like that. It wasn't expensive. And it wasn't very big, but it kind of served the purpose to kind of get me into it. But you have to kind of learn that skill of kind of drawing on the tablet whilst you're watching the mouse cursor on the screen. And I do find it's a lot more intuitive. It's a lot more. You don't have to kind of like figure out that like step in your head, that little mental bit of coordination. If you're literally just drawing straight onto the screen. So the Huion Canvas graphics monitor range is a fantastic, really good value for money. And in terms of like as a tool to use for a hobby or professionally, they're amazing. So I would definitely recommend that. You got the Wacoms, which are kind of next level. They're a lot more expensive, but you don't really get an awful lot more for your money. A few little buttons up and down the side and things like that, but sometimes they get in the way and they're a bit of a headache. I've got a Wacom as well, and personally I prefer the Huion. So, you know, if I end up ever having to buy another one, it'll be another Huion probably. They do the Canvas 22, I think it is now, for I think it's about 600 quid, but the Wacom equivalent is around about 1500 or so. So it's more than double the cost. So, oh yeah. If you're talking like the Intuos type one, it's a smaller unit. It's a handheld type thing that you just plug in. You still have to, like I say, you'll have to learn that skill of look at the screen, draw on the tablet, coordinate the movements on the tablet to what's going on the screen. But it's not the end of the world. It's doable. I did it for a while anyway. So okay, so with this one now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just sculpt in various bits of clothing that are on her. So we've got this this vesty top. So I'm just going to rough the shape. Something's going weird with my brush here. What's going on? Okay, let me just Dynamesh and increase the resolution on this. I'm going to turn off. There we go. That's better. So, okay, it was going a bit weird because the dynamic tessellation was on. I'm guessing something is going on my machine. It's eating up memory at the moment. It's causing it to lag. So I'm just going to scrub in a little bit of this vest. It doesn't have to be too clean at the moment. So I'm going to, if you've seen what I've done on previous streams, what I'll do is I'll create the shape here. I'll probably cut this section out from the rest of the mesh, fill in all the holes, and then just go around and just polish up all of the end connections. So the bit where it goes into the body doesn't have to be very clean, so that's fine. I can carve that away because there's an actual body underneath this. This is purely for me to be able to kind of like sculpt the clothes onto, and it's just a quicker way of doing it than trying to like do all extracts and things like that. Nice and quick and easy. And if you're sculpting miniatures, you can literally get a posed miniature and just draw clothes all over it. It will work. It's very kind of like, you know, quick and dirty kind of way around it. But again, you know, if you were doing stuff for your personal collection, you don't need it to be, you know, 100% polished and clean, because by the time you print it, like, unfortunately with these kind of things as well, what I end up having to do, because I have to render these up to promote them and show them, they have to be clean enough to be shown in a render. If they're not clean enough, then what happens is they look scruffy and no one's going to want them. But you really don't need to be that clean for 3D printed stuff, because by the time you scale it down, like even printing this bit here, all of these little strokes I've got here, they look unsightly on the sculpt. So right now they look really kind of like scruffy and manky. But if you were to print that, they're going to kind of like normalise out in the print. So you're not really going to see any of these like funny little strokes and little ridge lines and things like that. But like I say, for the purposes of having to render it out to promote it and present it, you kind of then have to do it. So if you were just doing personal collection stuff, you can leave it a little bit more rough. There's not the need to then go in and polish it and clean it up and everything. So okay, so we've got a little neck chain on. We've got the top. Next bit, I suppose, will be leg wraps. So let's do. Okay, so for the leg wraps, I'm going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to extract the mesh here. So we're going to wrap it down to there. That's about the right level. So I'm going to do an extract. Come on, up there, a little bit too chunky. Let's go for 294. Extract, perfect. Okay, delete the internal geometry. Delete hidden close holes. Okay, now I'm going to ramp the Dynamesh up. I'm going to polish it in Dynamesh. I'm going to go to my Orb Cracks brush, and I'm going to do some cuts to be the bandages. So I've got the lazy mouse on, so it's helping me to like normalise the strokes. I'm just going to go around the leg in a kind of a wrap fashion. You can see obviously at the back here we've got the leg coming back round, and then it's going to come up to the top. It's going to tuck in just here. So there's got to be a point where it kind of overlaps and goes in. And then we'll come so far down the leg, I think, and then I'm going to cut it back in. I'm just going to taper it across to there, and then we're going to come back out of there, go back into the leg. This is just to add a little bit more interest to the bandage rather than just being a straight round wrap, because it's frankly a bit boring then. From there, I'm going to bring that down that way then. Again, we're going to change direction. Now, physically and realistically, I'm not entirely sure that this would really work. You would actually be able to wrap a bandage in this fashion. But from an artistic, stylistic point of view, don't care. It does the job. So here I've got a little bit that's going to need a little bit of attention. So let's just bring that across here. Okay, so I can just do a little bit of infill there. Mr. Snowyak, how you doing, mate? Thank you for tuning in again. So we're doing, you can see her on the screen at the moment. This is Feena from the Crystal Collapse game. This is the one we're working on at the moment. I had a play testing session with Max today and his friend Robert. So we've gone through, we've done a little bit of refining on the rules, tweaked the movement, and done a little bit of skill reworking. So we'll have another little session on that next week. Play it through after Max has had a chance to write it all up and get it ready to rock. Okay, right, so there is roughly the bandages, and you see I've just literally just rotated it round and round and round and round and round, wrapped it all in, and kind of eventually got to where I wanted it to be. So I'm just going to take my oh, the zombies got mullered, did they? Do you know, I should hope so as well. They're only zombies. I hope they had fun doing it though. I've got to be adding to the zombies soon actually, so just to let you in on a secret, so one of the things I'm planning soon is a little Kickstarter, which is basically a whole undead army. So we're going to take the zombies, we're going to expand on them a little bit, so there'll be some more variation in the zombies. Going to throw some more variation in skeletons as well, so I want to up the numbers of each unit from 5 where they currently stand to around about 20. So the plan will be, basically, I'm going to add some orc skeletons, some elf skeletons and some dwarf skeletons. So we've got 5 humans in the group already, or in each of the groups. So the plan will be to add more skeletons from different humanoid races, and then that will allow us to kind of have more of a bit more representation, a bit more interest. And obviously when you find you know, necromancers raising corpses out of the ground, it's always weird that they just pull human bodies up when you've got like orcs on the battlefield and elves on the battlefield and things. So you know, we'll get the You guys are all in the Netherlands, are you? Do you know you need to have a little checkup? There's a little chap called Ryan. I can remember his surname now. Verhaven. He does the miniatures artwork for us on the Cursed Empire stuff, and he's from the Netherlands. He's a Dutch artist, so show your locals some love. Have a little look. There was a link posted on my last stream by... No, not on the last stream actually. Let me just have a quick check for him, and I'll just dig him up and I'll show you his stuff. But he's been doing some... I'm sure Chris won't mind me showing you actually, but he's done a new piece recently, which is something I'm going to have to sculpt for the Cursed Empire game. This thing, how amazing does that look? That's one of Ryan's pieces. Oh, you found him! Brilliant, mate. Yeah, this is Ryan's latest kind of gribbly monster. So this will be one of the ones I've got to do for Cursed Empire for him. So he's, when it comes to like creature art and things like that, the man's a genius. So yeah, check him out, give him a follow. And I say he's a local for you guys, so spread the love, man. Right, what am I doing with this? I'm just gonna figure this out now. Okay, so what I need to do, I just need to go around the edges of the bandages. Don't really want to go around top and bottom edges if I can help it, because that kind of implies that there's no overlap on the bandage. You kind of want a little bit of overlap, because otherwise you'll have bits of skin showing between. So I'm going to do the bottom edge of the bandages as the overlapping edge, so that'll be the one slightly more raised than the others. Where it gets to another one that's going under like that, I'm just going to carve a little bit out just to kind of give it a bit of texture going in, and just give it the kind of the visual effect that it's going underneath. So just wrapping these old bandages, just tapering the tops a little bit, and then with this I can always use my little trick, which is to dynamesh with the polish feature on. And then what that will do, you'll see it, because I tend to work in a stylized way, and you'll see exactly what it does. It basically does the job for you. So you get it kind of like 50% of the way, dynamesh it with the polish activated, and then you'll see what happens in a second. But it basically just instantly gives it that World of Warcraft stylized kind of look. And then you can just go in and just polish it and clean it, and do what you need to do from there. But it's a nice effect, very nice effect. It's one of my favourite things about ZBrush actually. I do it all the time, and it just helps you to get that nice look. Okay, so you can see how rough and ready they are. Bandages, they're all kind of scrubbed in. They've got the forms are there, but the shapes are a bit scabby. They're not clean and polished or anything like that. I'm just going to take that bit in there just to give it a little bit more of an irregular shape at the top. Okay, and now I'm going to dynamesh with my groups, with my polish on. And 3, 2, 1. Oops, actually, let's undo that. Let's just put the resolution down a touch, about 650, I think. And now we'll dynamesh it. And there you see, it's just cleaned up the lines. There's still a bit of roughness there, so I can probably take it down. Let's say 400. Lower again, 300, 240. There you go, 240, and it's giving me that now. So that's workable there as a miniature. Just going to brush a polish, a smoothing brush across it just very lightly, and I'm going to bump it back up again to increase my resolution to about 600. Oh no, too high. About 400. That'll do. That'll just let me kind of sharpen up the edges a little bit with the Orbs Cracks brush, give it a little bit of definition. So I was running the smoothing over it just to kind of like clean it up a bit. But anything I do with the smoothing now, the smoothing is destructive, so it does kind of mutilate and mangle any detail you sculpt. So like the little sharp details, they all get softened and flattened and they just look rubbish then. So I need to just go and do a little bit of cleanup on them. So again, I'm just going to bump my Z intensity up. I'm going to reduce the size of the brush down. I just want to go in and just do some of these little cracks and crevices. And this is just going to be areas where the ink's going to sit. So when you paint this, so for me, these bandages, in keeping with the colour scheme that we've got on the image, I would do these bandages in a kind of a brownish grey to start with. So use a brownish grey for the bandages. Then I would probably put probably like a pin wash, maybe something like wildwood, just to get nice dark lines in the bandage. And once I'd got that, probably highlight the base colour with a kind of an off-white light grey kind of thing, and then bring up the glazes and layers to the highlights. And like I say, the washes will sit in the little crevices here. So any of these little lines I sculpt in now, so little fold lines on the bandages, little what do you call it? So they're going to go. These lines that I'm raising up at the bottom, they are going to be for highlights to pick up. So they'll be like your edge highlights, will catch them. So again here, coming out of the recesses where it tucks under, I'm just going to do a couple of like indented lines just to give it the idea of folded material. Just here I need to do a little bit, so I'm not sure what's going on with this bit of material, so I'm just going to put a few lines just to indicate that there's material in there. Just here I need to do a few coming down. I'll just tuck it up there a little bit just to help shape it. Soften and smooth that touch. There we go. So we've got a little low spot there. So a couple of extra lines just again to give an indication of some texture or something. And right, the last spot where we're going to have a little bit of texture. Mr. Snow, I haven't got it running today, mate. Give me a second, I'll let you know what the code was again. So the code is live all month. Give me 2 secs. So here. Right, so you go into My Mini Factory and you use the code BDay39. That's B-Day as in birthday, not the bottom washing appliance you find in European toilets. Oh man, what are you doing? BDay39. Right, so annoyingly, when I type B-Day into the chat, how do I stop it from putting a stupid emoji in there? Oh, that is so annoying. Okay, so unfortunately guys, I can't actually type it because every time I type B-Day, it puts a silly cupcake emoji into the screen. But if you want to use the discount code It's for my Minifactory store, so head over to myminifactory.com/users/the_lions_tower. And anything you add into your basket there, the code works on absolutely everything in my store, including the Kingdom of Talaria's pledges. So if you want to get a whole army, now's the time to do it. Code is BDAY, all capitals, 39, and it'll give you a 39% discount off everything in my store. Okay, and I say I would love to write it in the chat, but it won't let me. Right, so here we go. So I'm just going to raise. Oh no, wrong tool again. No worries, mate. Right, here we go. So I'm just going to raise the ridges up here. Bottom line, I'm just going to put that increased. I'm just going to put a few little indents in just to kind of add a little bit of texture. A couple. Anytime you're sculpting fabric like this, it's good to use inverted and, well, standard streams. So I'm half reading and half talking. Mrs. asked if you have a stream planned where you'll be sculpting buildings. I absolutely have, actually. I haven't planned it, but one of the things I've just announced on my Patreon page. So with me doing more of the like the Twitch streaming and stuff, the current Patreon model doesn't really work. So what I've done, I've changed. I haven't done it yet. This is a proposal. I'm going to change the tier structure. So the lowest level tier will just be anybody who's on Twitch who's following me and wants to just kind of like show a bit of support. That'll just be like a £2.50 tier that will give you access to discount codes off my website, get you involved in polls and things like that. So it'll just be a kind of a little bit of exclusive insider content and stuff like that you wouldn't otherwise get access to, as well as like your discount codes and things. And then we've got the standard tier, which will be for the STL files and the monthly releases. Now that's no different to what I currently do, except with the current releases there's this expectation that's been established over years now, that when you subscribe to somebody on Patreon, they should have an entire month's worth of stuff prepared, ready to kind of throw at you when the month starts. And when I actually first started doing the Patreon, one of the things I used to do, which I enjoyed, which I really want to get back to, was engaging with the patrons, engaging with the customers. So I would ask you guys, like, you know, what do you want me to sculpt this month? Here's the theme I'm working to. This is what I'm doing. Throw some ideas into the ring, and people would ask me to do different types of characters, and I'd take the suggestions that have been tabled, throw them into a poll, get people to vote on the poll, and then whichever one comes out, I would sculpt. Now at the time I wasn't doing them live, I wasn't doing any live streaming sculpting, so it was just kind of I just sculpted it and that was it, and I released the models. Occasionally I would go back to the patrons and say, look, you know, what weapons do you want me to give these guys? What kind of pose do you want? Any extra accessories, etc. And they'd pull it out. They'd post comments and things like that. And I'd just sometimes just go for things I like the sound of. Or other times we'd put it to a poll and they'd choose. So the plan is to get back to doing that kind of stuff. Now, what I'm going to do is like the Patreon. At the moment, patrons get like 30% discount standard across the board, except like this month when it's my birthday, they get a 39% discount because I'm 39 and I'm cheesy like that. The plan going forward is that patrons will get 50% flat rate discount off everything, and that's everything STL files. I'm going to be running resin files through, resin miniatures through my site as well, so that you'll be able to buy resin models directly from me. So they'll be printed by me and the wife on my various 4K printers I've got here that will, you know, they're good production quality stuff. They will be sent out to customers who purchase them, and patrons again, they'll get a 30% discount off the resin. So I want to reward you guys, rather than giving you huge quantities of files every month that are going to sit in a hoard. I I want to give you the ability to have a small project that you can actually deal with, that you can paint. I'll paint it with you as well on stream, and we can go through the hobby aspects of it and kind of, you know, make a thing of it all. And I want to go down that route and be a bit more, less of a factory that's churning out huge quantities, and be me, you know, sharing my hobby and engaging you as fellow hobbyists. That's the angle I want to kind of take with it. And part of that is doing different things. So building a community, and annoyingly, that is what I did at the beginning, and then I was talked out of it and talked into doing more of the monthly grind kind of things, and then the business kind of changed and took a different slant after that, and it was never quite recovered back to where it was at the beginning, when it was more about, you know, me engaging with people and building that community. So I'm going to try and get back to those roots and see if I can kind of, you know, build it back up and get it where it's going. But yeah, so the whole point is, like I say, we'll do I want to take requests from you guys and see what you want me to make. And some of the things I'll put to a poll, some of the stuff I'll just go, right, I really like the idea of this, I'm going to do this month. Because frankly, there's like, what, 500 Patreons out there at the moment, all churning out the same crap that's kind of, you know, just filling people's like hard drives with storage capacity that they're never going to use. Most of these people don't really care about the models, they're just churning them out because they see it as an easy win. The big studios, they're not run by artists, they're not run by design things, they're run by some guy who's got a wallet with cash in it to pay artists to do stuff. There's no quality control on them. Some of the stuff I see coming out of big studios, you know, it should be better controlled. And if you look at Games Workshop as a really big organisation where they've got tons of money, tons of development, loads of sculptors and stuff like that, look how many models they actually put out in a month. They don't even come close to the Patreons half the time in terms of the quantity. And it's the reason for that is because there's a quality control process in place to make sure that what they're producing are good quality paintable miniatures. And frankly, they've got it down. They've sussed it. They've got the team around them to be able to do it and everything. And they do it well. You know, whether you like them or not, they do the job well. And the Patreons, by contrast, the only person telling you whether or not something is good enough to go is you as the artist. And me, I like to think I've. Hiya, Pixel Graphics, how you doing? I like to think I've got a good handle on it because I've got, like, you know, so many years of model making experience, miniature sculpting experience. You know, I've got 34 years in the hobby now or something like that. So I know and understand miniatures inside out. But a lot of these other guys, they've come from a video games background, probably haven't ever printed a miniature, let alone painted one. They're not engaged and ingrained in the hobby. Do you know what I mean? So they're not hobbyists themselves. And the likeness I've made before is, would you go to a restaurant and buy a meal from a chef who did not eat food? Because that's what you're doing when you buy models from sculptors who don't paint minis. Oh, Victis are amazing. Yeah, Victis. They are Jonathan and Mathilde. Brilliant sculptors, very, very good quality figures. Titan Troll as well, Dave Whittaker. If you want miniatures that are actual miniatures, Dave Whittaker's another great one for them. Bite the Bullet. I don't know a lot about Bite the Bullet, if I'm honest. I think they came out of nowhere, didn't they? Didn't they just kind of like appear one day and then suddenly hit big? And then good old Mike, of course. Yeah, Mike's obviously he's not a miniatures patron, but again, like I say, it ties into Twitch. So skip up, because I've been yakking for ages now. Let's just jump up the chat a bit because I've loads of chatting going on and I've missed a bit. So Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, I think it ties into Twitch rather well. Just found you on MFF without knowing the real you. I would have looked at how many models you would have put out and what quality, but now I buy stuff because I want it. and also because I like you as a human being. Thank you very much. So I think it's a great idea. Brilliant, thank you. Gives me a warm feeling. That could be the whiskey, but it could be the lovely comments as well. Oh, it's Pogue's Irish malt as well, by the way. It's rather nice. Okay, so as I see more of the small 1- and 2-man companies with whom there is a connection with the big than the big companies, GW release schedule makes me crazy. It makes me want to quit getting their stuff. Yeah, I know. I haven't bought GW stuff for years now. Occasionally I go back in the shop and buy paints and I have a look at the models, and I'm very tempted to pick something up, and then I always just think it's a slippery slope, and my pockets aren't that deep at the moment, so it's probably not. I've got enough of my own stuff to get through painting, so painting other people's minis isn't really on the cards for me. Although I have a weak spot for the footsore guys, and I have got a lot of Baron's War and Mortal Gods minis sitting on my painting desk waiting to get a paint job. So I'll be doing some of them at some point soon. The new Kickstarter from Footsore, or the last Kickstarter from Footsore, the Knights Templar Outrimmer one, that should be rolling out soon. So I'm hoping this month, maybe next, I'll get a nice little package full of metal models. I'll be looking forward to that one. Where are we? Tying into your comment, the wife said that the way you sculpt the wraps works because you know where the paint goes. Yeah, exactly. And this is it. It's when you sculpt anything, knowing where the highlights are going to fall, how you're going to paint. Because I always think how I'm painting this. When I come to do this model, how am I actually going to paint it myself? And if I don't know, I'll be buggered how anybody else is going to figure it out. And then you end up sculpting areas where you can't physically access with a paintbrush, so you have to look at those kind of things as well and make sure that everywhere is accessible that needs to be. Okay, so leg bandages, leg wraps are pretty much done. She's got these rope sandals, so they're going to be fun to do. So we started this due to my question when you were doing the buildings on stream, and did I miss that bit? You didn't miss it. I didn't really cover it. So basically the plan is I want to do little bits of sci-fi, I want to do little bits of fantasy, a bit of historical type stuff, some dioramas, some buildings and things like that, and I'll be able to kind of show you everything. Now I don't remember if I showed you before, but I actually did the entire range of terrain for the Baron's War. So if I just go to Footsore Miniatures website, let's just show you this while I'm on here, and this will help to see what kind of things we're talking about. So if we go into where are we looking now, 3D printed terrain on the Footsore website. They don't sell the STL files for this, they only sell the resin buildings at the moment. There's a sub company here which is what actually produced this. It's Warhost. The website for Warhost is more around the game rules for the Baron's War and getting your retinues built, and he's got the retinue builder and stuff like that on there. And I believe the intention is at some point they will be selling the STL files on Warhost. But for now, Footsore, they sell the terrain. So this lovely little village here, this is Momentum Village, which is it's based on an actual real British village from around about the 1400s. So there was a lot of historical reference here. There's also a lot of rivet counters and a lot of history nerds who think they know better than everybody else. The problem is all of these buildings from the 1400s, they were made out of horsehair, straw and mud, wattle and daub, wood, and occasionally stone for things like churches, and pretty much all that is left is like complete ruins. So we don't really know what the roofs look like, we don't know what other elements of it look like, so we've got to kind of guess based on what we believe the technology to have been at the time. And there's a lot of buildings out there that have been, they're Dark Ages buildings from the 1400s that actually they've been refurbished and rebuilt, and what's the word, reimagined if you like, and you can only kind of assume that it's correct, because it's been done using like historical techniques and things like that, and no modern kind of no modern building materials or anything else. But again, you don't actually know 100% that that is how people were living, what they were living in. They made the roofs or anything else. So there's a lot of guesswork in it, and there's still a lot of people that will turn around and tell you that your guesses are wrong. So it is frustrating doing it, but I had good fun. So I did the hay cart, the tax cart over here. The horse and riders, they were done by Paul Hicks, who's the miniature sculptor. I did these barricades here, so these are all just a little bit of scatter terrain to obstruct your opponents on the tabletop. The little beehive with little bees crawling all over them. Blacksmith I was particularly proud of. This one worked out rather nice. We actually did it in such a way that you could put LEDs into the forge and have the forge glowing red. So there's like enough hollow area underneath the forge coals and in the chimney that you could house like battery packs and things like that. So it is possible if you wanted to do that. We got a busted up cart and then a proper cart that you can use. The church, that's a nice big one, that is. And at 50 quid, that's a bargain, that is, as well. I think I'd be tempted to add an extra 25 because it is massive. Couple more hovels, some markers, more objective markers, little pigsty. So I've literally done all of this for the futsal range. The bit that's not in here is the castle from the Kickstarter. So if I just Kickstarter Barons War. So this was the no worries. So the Barons War one here. Obviously it was all metal miniatures for the most part, and then I did this this castle for them. This one here, the Crusader Fort, fortified hospital. And again, they were selling that as a resin miniature, so I think that will be added onto the futsal website later on. Okay, so yes, basically anytime anybody wants anything like that, just ask for it, and we'll weigh up the pros and cons and schedule it into a stream and try and offer the content that people want to see, basically. Okay, so let's do Feena's loincloth next, I think. So I'm going to append a cube for that. Yeah, the Barons War stuff's beautiful, mate. If you're into any kind of like historical things, you've got to check them out because they are just ace. You know, Andy and the guys, they get it right whenever they do these Kickstarters. He's not been well recently, Andy hasn't. He's had a nasty case of COVID. It's knocked him about a little bit, but hopefully he's back on his feet now. I'll be having a catch up with him on Friday and just see how he's getting on, how things are working out. So I'm just going to shape this loincloth here. I'm not going to be too precise about it. Let's use the smoothing tool just to smooth off the edges, round it out. I'm going to use the move topological tool here. So it looks like, I would say, looking at the way the skirt is just here in the in this corner, it kind of comes up to the top of the belt, and there's a definite kind of overlap. It almost looks like she'd have some kind of like a rope around the top, and then the back section looks like it comes up and folds over the top of the rope, so there may be like a double layer at the back, and then the front section comes up the front and then folds over again. So we've got this. It's not a one-piece skirt; it's a two-piece wraparound kind of thing. So I'm just going to bring. Oh, let's just do that. Make sure it's on both sides. Just going to bring these pieces in here. Oh, now Feena does have a tail as well, so I need to figure out how I'm going to put the tail in. whether I put a split in skirt to account for it, or if it's going to be going down and under. So it looks like, I would say, probably come out of a hole in the back of the skirt, back of the loincloth. So I'm going to go with that for now. Okay, so let's see. I want that. So she's got this little wall. Give it a bit of shape, a little bit of movement. Right. Right, so go with that for now. It looks like we've got more like layers. There's probably whole chunks of this skirt that are going to be kind of like coming down and like wedges over here. In fact, let's just do that actually. Let's also group this. I'm going to take this chunk here, I'm going to duplicate it by Control and Shift. I'm going to rotate it sideways, shrink it down, let's bring it up, flip it around, plonk it roughly in place. So we're going to go for layers on her. Okay. Yeah, I could do. I mean, to be fair, this piece I've just put in here, if I bring this round a bit more, let's connect that to here. Let's make that a little bit chunkier there, and then what I can do is I can take this piece, there we go, open that out, and I'll bring the tail down into this gap. I think that'll work. Okay, I'm just going to auto group this. I'm going to polish and group and dynamesh it all. And I'm just going to whiz the smoothing brush over it fairly coarsely without any consideration to anything. Just to kind of polish out some of the tessellation that I should have got rid of by smoothing it before I before I did this. That's not a problem. Right, I'm going to use the snake hook tool. So the snake hook pulls like little pieces. So if I do that, I can pull a little piece out. Now that looks awful because it didn't have the dynamic tessellation. But you turn dynamic tessellation on, grab a piece, and you pull it, and you can keep pulling these like nice little like tentacly type bits out. They do get a little bit thin towards the end, so you just have to kind of be mindful of them. But you can obviously you can do that, and then you can get the inflates and just run inflate over them. Now that's not really what I wanted for this one. I want to use this to do the tatty ends of the cloth. So I'm just going to pull the ends down like this. Just create a few jagged bits. Here again, do the same. Another piece there. Pull that one. Bring one down here. Another little bit here. Okay, so I'm just going to come down. I'm just going to refine the shape at the top here a bit. Bring that one in. So this one here, I'm going to mask it off and isolate it. I'm just going to run around the edge with the clay builder tool. Yeah, do you know, I'm not 100% sure. There's a little bit of fluidity to her story at the moment. She did have. So I want to show you the original artwork so you can see where I'm talking about this evolution coming from. So she's always been part of the Basalia faction, which is the starter set we're releasing. We've got the Imperials, so you've got the your classic JRPG bad guys, and then we've got the Basalia. They are the kind of the opponents, the rebels, if you like. So Feena is the cat lady. She is the wife of one of the other characters, I think Roland. So they were married to give them a joining of nations. So they took whatever nation that she's from, which is like the forest fairies, like the forest elves or whatever. This faction comes together with House Basalia in union against the Empire, and they do it by marrying Prince Roland with Feena, who is like she's a princess, but she's the princesses, or the noble females from this faction. They are like mages. They are like druids, I suppose. Druids and priestesses. So let me show you the original artwork we had for her, because the original artwork was cool, but obviously it's not the final stuff that we've gone with. So original artwork for Feena was this. So you can see there was a completely different style. So her clothing and her kind of garments, they were more in themed with the Basalia faction. And then we got Roland here. This is the guy that she's married to. So he's her husband, her partner, kind of thing, and they're fighting together against the Empire. Now she is the healer. Roland is like he's the leader character. And we've redone the Roland artwork recently. So instead of being so happy clappy cheesy like he was on that one, this is what he looks like now. So I'll be doing him on a subsequent stream at some point. So he looks a bit more emo, a little bit kind of grittier and moodier than the original version, where he's quite happy clappy. So yeah, he's looking pretty cool now. And then we've got the other characters we're going to be working on. We've got Victoria and Noodles. So she's got like a little bit of a Greek Athena look about her. She's a ranger for the Basalia faction. Noodles is her little forest animal companion. It's a little bit like a squirrel crossed with a fox. And basically one of her special moves is she sets him on you, and he runs and climbs inside your trousers. Basically distracts you and makes all the attacks against you count as back attacks. So he'll be a nice one. And then we've got Joshua. He's one of the Imperial bad guys. He's got a big spear. He's your kind of your Cain Dragoon kind of character. So he's got a jump skill, so he can leap around and get into positions for back attacks with his spear. Makes him quite a nasty character. He's a bit weak in the game at the moment after play testing, so we've got to kind of bump him up and make him a bit beefier, if you like. And then we've got Corrado, who is the other guy. He is Roland's brother. So he's like the big brother who everyone looks up to. He's just a big badass with a massive sword who just goes around slamming everybody. He's the one you want to avoid on the battlefield because he's well hard. And then on the other side, obviously, if you saw him before, we got King Lucifer. He was called Luca when I play tested today, so I don't know if Max has changed the name a bit, but he's like the big bad guy. on the Empire side. So he's an evil prince who, well, he's not an evil prince to start with. He's a prince who gets exposed to these crystals. The crystals are the eggs of gods. And he finds this crystal and it kind of explodes and the light kind of like blasts at him and kind of sends him crazy, and he goes on a kind of a mission to, he's got this compulsion to go and collect crystals and bring them all together and try and discover more eggs and crack the eggs open to release more gods. So he goes back to his dad, so he's a prince at the time, goes back to his dad and says, look, Dad, I want you to go and invade our neighbours so we can get the egg. I need the crystals from our neighbours. The dad kind of turns around and goes, no chance, mate, you're not having it. So he kills his dad, crowns himself king, and then proceeds to go on a military expansion of his borders and starts basically turning his kingdom into an empire, and goes on an aggressive hunt for these crystal shards and crystal eggs and things like that. So he's not a very nice guy in the game. He's pretty scary now. Yeah, he's definitely got that look. I mean, I'll show you the model for him. So I finished the model on the last stream I did for this one. If you didn't see it, there he is. This is decimated to within an inch of his life, to try and get him into Tabletop Simulator. But that's the sculpt for the for King Lucifer, King Luca. Probably better to look at the undecimated coloured version. There we go. So that's the bad guy. He's the king of the Empire faction. And then we've got Corrado, that's Corrado unposed. So you can see he's got a bit more of a regal look about him. He's got that kind of the opposite of King Luca. And now we're doing, where is she now? I've lost the file. Where's Feena? Here's Feena. There we go. So yeah, so that's the few sculpts we've got going on so far. So we'll do Feena now. Next up we'll probably have, I think it's probably going to be, if I'm honest, it might be this guy. This guy's called Mr. Powder. So he's like the equivalent of the mage for the Empire. So instead of actually casting magic, he has a rifle that is loaded with like a mana crystal. So his rifle builds up magical power and then he kind of blasts it out at you at kind of fairly short range. It's kind of like a shotgun blunderbuss that shoots like a magical projectile. So he's a pretty vicious character in the game. He's the kind of character you have to spend a couple of turns like building up the mana, like load the mana up and kind of stack it and stack it and stack it, and then the more kind of mana crystals you can kind of harvest and like build up, the more powerful the shot he gets to kind of let off, because you can basically put every mana crystal he's like reined into an attack, and if he manages to do that, he's pretty damn lethal. So right, just going to do a little bit of shaping on this now. So we're just going to add a few directional strokes with a little bit of lazy mouse on to help smooth the strokes out. And with any of these, where you've got a wider top, what you want to do is you want to kind of start without too many. You don't want too many big folds at the top of the material. You want to start broad and then narrow down, and as you narrow down, the depth of the creases will increase, and that will give you this kind of like a ruffling and folding kind of effect with the material that will help to kind of sell it. So let's just run the all cracks brush through the creases, and again starting at the top, not very much pressure. As I get further down, more pressure. And what I want to see is, ideally, I want that coming through to the back on the other side. So wherever I have a raised area, I want the inverse of that on the back. Okay, and it's not mega important if you're not going to see it, but I think we are going to see it on this one, so I'm just going to make the effort to just sharpen it up a bit. Just smoothing it all out so it gets rid of some of the worst of the brush strokes, and I can come back in and do a little bit of polishing with H polish later on. We're going to come onto this piece now, and I want this piece to look like it goes over the top and tucks in. So I'm just going to bring that on back. Let's make sure the material is available and visible. I just want to add a little ridge to the top here. What's going on here? That's going weird. What's going on? Something was acting bizarre then. Okay, so this is going to go around here. The top part I want to basically like roll over the top here, and then over here it's going to go underneath. So the back piece of the skirt is going to go over the top of that. So let's just do a couple of strands coming down. Let's use the points here as guides, so they can be the main forms. Take the orb cracks brush, increase the size. I'm just going to run them down here. Again, sometimes it's easier to remove other stuff because the orb cracks brush and other brushes, actually, when you get to the edge of a mesh, they can start interacting with whatever's behind it or next to it, and it can mess stuff up a bit. So let's just clear the deck of any excess like noise that's going to get in the way. And we can do this now, add these little strands and strokes in. Okay, so that's a couple there. Just let's just do this bit here. So I want to do an inverted stroke there. Let's bring that up. Let's do another one all the way down there, another one there, and I think that will be enough then. So we're going to run a ridge over there. That's going to go up and over, so just need to make sure that that is where it needs to be. And it's going under here, so I'm just going to carve out a little bit just to give it a bit of shape. Okay, so carve some rough shapes, smooth them out, and again I'm going to come back and do a polishing pass on this afterwards just to help sharpen up the creases, make sure the forms fit, and I want to bear in mind the direction that the materials go in as well. So I want this to be a shallow bit here. Gouge in. Okay. So nice, and do you know what? I've just got something a little bit wrong here. That's about there, I think. Bring this corner round a bit so the front piece has more of a, make it a bit more asymmetric, a bit more interesting. Oh dear. So I've just had a message from my wife saying that my little one's not well and she's been sick. I'm going to carry on for about another 20 minutes or so, but I'm going to have to just go and okay. Yeah, Willow's she's a bit under the weather at the moment. She's got a little bit of a cough going on, and she's not her usual self. So unfortunately, she's just been a little bit sick. So I'm going to go and give the wife a hand in a minute to help her look after the little one, because she's a proper daddy's girl as well. So when she's not feeling right, it's me or nothing. So okay. Okay, so I've got a skirt on. Let's throw these like wrap things that she's got around her waist. There's a few things there around her waist as well, which I'm going to go on a limb and say they're feathers. So we'll add a few feathers into there. I'll add a bit of extra interest, a bit of texture. The little bands around her waist. So anytime I do a belt, I always do the same thing. You'll see some people, when they make a belt, they use a curved strap tool, which basically creates like an actual physical band around the model. The band has internal geometry and external geometry, so there's like an inside face, like a real belt. And the problem with those things is when you do that, you end up with internal geometry that isn't useful. We don't want it, and if it separates away from the body enough that there's a gap between it and the actual item of clothing in the body, that little gap becomes a resin pocket, and if it's not properly vented and whatever else, you end up with like a little pocket of liquid resin trapped inside the model. And then at some point later down the line, that's going to cause the model to split open and weep, which nobody wants to deal with that. So especially not if you've painted them as well. So yeah, I always do a solid cylinder like this and work with that instead. So this way, the cylinder there is no internal skin. There's no risk of a gap forming in between. And what I can do is I can just position it where I want it, manipulate the thing, polish the edges so it's nice and flat and straight, and then I'll just come into the other bits here and I'm just going to tuck the bits of loincloth in so that they go underneath the belt. Okay. Use the move topological tool to just bring the areas together and move them separately. So move topological is a nice little feature of ZBrush, where if I've got, like here I've got, for example, 3 separate meshes. I've got the front section, the back section, the side section, and I can use the move tool on one of those sections without actually affecting any of the others, because it works based on the kind of continuous topology of the one item. So let's just bring that one up a touch. Okay, so once you've got all of the skirt in place, and I've tucked everything in, I'll come back to my belt. Just do a little bit of fine positioning on the belt. I want to make sure the edge of the belt is fairly straight all the way around. I don't want too much undulation on there, and kind of keep it fairly stable, fairly consistent. Although it is a fabric belt by the look of things, so it's not the end of the world at all. In fact, it looks like it's multiple bits. How to deal with this then? So I'm going to say this is one strap that goes all the way around twice. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to keep the top where it is. I'm going to bring the outside edge down here. So I'm going to bring this down here. The other one I'm going to bring down that way as well. So this actually runs round and down, and then for what I'm going to achieve here now, I want them together. So I'm going to put them together. I'm going to put them about 400 resolution, polish them, and Dynamesh. It says the mesh has multiple subdivision levels. Would you like to freeze the subdivision levels before entering Dynamesh mode? I would say no to that. So that basically makes sure it locks it all in. Shouldn't snow it. Mr. Snowyak is sorry, but I'm going to be knocking it on the head shortly anyway, because I don't know if you caught it, but my daughter's just been sick in the house, so my wife's having to deal with that at the moment. So I'm just going to do another few minutes here, and then I'm going to wrap up for tonight. We'll come back and revisit this lovely lady on Friday's stream. So Friday will be on a daytime. So yeah, if you're about on Friday and you want to kind of tune in and catch up, then yeah, absolutely feel free. So I've just changed the orientation of the belt now, so the shape that's here now works differently. So we've got the bit of belt comes around the back. Let's tuck that into there, tuck that back. That one. Okay, so this comes down here, goes underneath and round, and this is like a fabric wrap. It's not like a leather belt, so I don't want it to look like a leather belt. It could be leather, to be fair, but it feels fabricy to me. I'm sure she'll be all right, mate. Thank you. She's just been a bit under the weather today. It was a birthday on Monday, so she's been a bit excitable, a little bit full of beans and whatnot. And I've kind of got a feeling it might just be that it's just got a bit much for her. Her eczema's flared up and stuff like that, so I think she's probably just generally under the weather. So, and she left a favourite teddy at nursery today, so Hop is sat in a classroom somewhere and she's been mithering about it, so I think that's playing on her mind and bothering her. So yeah, I've got to go in and give her some cuddles and a bit of attention in a minute, just to make sure that she settles and she's, you know, not driving the wife mental. But thanks for tuning in again. I'll catch you again on another stream soon. So Friday, if you're up for it, I'll be doing the rest of this model. I've posed up with a nice subtle pose and sort of staff out and everything else. Okay. So a little bit of smoothing on here. Touch moving going on, just to bring it away from things, from the skirt. Oops, don't want to do that. Right, I'm just going to do a few creases with the orb cracks. So this just helps to give it more of a flowing cloth feel. So I'm going to run these in a kind of a twisted fashion, so they run off to the bottom. I want to tuck it up and round, so just follow the curve round. Do the top in again there, like that. Go round and round and round. And again, anytime I add a crease that's raised, I want to add a crease that's indented, kind of running next to it, just to give us that indication that we're dealing with a three-dimensional fabric, because it always looks a bit flat if you only give it one. If you just raise it or lower it, it doesn't quite give it enough depth, and certainly not enough kind of interest and intrigue. So let's just carve this bit back, bring this back into the thing so it appears to go behind the belt. So this gives the belt a kind of a proper wraparound effect. And then when I wrap the rope around the top, we can put the rope through a little hole here to do a tie up. Put a knot in there and a little string, and she should be good then. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting these models printed and painted and get them on the table for a proper test game. Okie dokie, so let's just bring some stuff back. Do a bit of reshaping here. Right, just up here, I'm just gonna carve away some of this because I don't want a big solid flat space there, because that's going to look weird if any part of it is visible. I'd rather get a nice little bit of bum cheek through there to as part of the model than a weird flat plane. I don't think any of it will be visible by the time I've finished anyway, because by the time I've posed her and I've got the tail in and everything else, this will all be closed up here anyway, so it's only a temporary thing. Let's just polish this because I haven't done this yet. Right, polishing works a lot better when you haven't got dynamic tessellation on. Dynamic tessellation is a pig when it comes to having to do polishing. It just takes 10 times longer for some reason. I don't even know why. Oh, my bum's gone to sleep. Right, so we're going on into here. And again, that whole two-directional creases thing's important. Anytime you add a crease going one direction, well, in terms of depth at least, we had a raised one, we're going to add the shallow one next to it, just so there's a little bit of, you can just see here, there's this like little bit of like folding building up, just to allow you to kind of be able to, again, just get a little bit of an indication that there's some texture there, that there's some material. It doesn't have to be too you know, too over the top. But sometimes when you're looking at miniatures, you can't always tell if you're dealing with like skin tight clothes or you're dealing with you know, an actual bit of flesh. And sometimes it doesn't matter, it's down to the person painting it, how they interpret it. And you know, you'll see people will paint, some people will paint it with the skin, some people will paint it as clothes. It's down to individual interpretations, but obviously there's a way it's intended to be. And it's best in all cases if you can get that to come across. pretty happy with how she's shaping up at the moment. Out of the roll, thank you for the follow. So if you just recently joined us, the lovely lady on the corner of the screen is Feena. She is a healer for our Crystal Collapse game that we're working on. So we're hoping to be bringing Crystal Collapse to Kickstarter sometime early next year. So say February, March kind of time. So it's a 2-player competitive game. So we're doing PvP as the initial rollout, but there is a PvE mode with like a Monster Hunter type vibe, where you'll be playing against like hordes of enemies and mobs of enemies and stuff, rather than opposing player factions. But if you like tournament games and you like those kind of the competitive scene, that's what we're kind of going for. So hopefully it's looking good. Well, thank you for coming to lurk. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to knock it on the head shortly, because I've just a few minutes back had a message from my wife saying that my daughter's been sick in a bed. So she's only 4. She literally just turned 4 on Monday. And she's a little bit run down at the moment. She's been a bit mopey and moany today, and it's culminated in a bit of sickness. So rather than sit down here and avoid it, I'm gonna do the right thing by by my wife and the little one, and go and be daddy for the night and sort her out. But thank you for joining in. I'm going to be finishing this on Friday, so if you're about on Friday daytime, it'll be about 10 o'clock start again. I'll resume this sculpt, and we'll finish it off on stream. I may do a little ad hoc stream tomorrow, but it'll be what do you call it? It'll be a bit of an unplanned one if I do, and it'll probably be doing some Saracen style Knights of the Shield that I've been working on. So I've got to get those guys ready for this month's Patreon, so I'll just work on them tomorrow. Okay, so she hasn't got anything on her arms, so the arms don't really need any work apart from posing. The top is done, the necklace needs to be done as well. I need to add a rope to this belt, a couple of feathers down here, I think. Work on the tattered cloth, but I'll detail that and do a little bit more on there later on. And then the bit I'm least looking forward to on her is the little rope sandals. Just because rope is always a pain in the bum to sculpt. And then obviously the staff will be fairly straightforward. Oh, and the head, how could I forget the head? So we got the very, very pretty feminine face with the the short choppy hair and the cat ears. So that'll be part of Friday's stream. I think I'll have her finished on Friday. I don't think it's going to take me an awful lot longer to get it done. In fact, you know what? Before I go, I'm just going to do the tail, just because it's easy enough to just get it done. So the way I'm going to do the tail, I'm just going to use the curved tubes brush. That's way too big, by the way. It's not going to stay that size. So that's kind of the vibe I'm going for. I was going to shrink it down, make it a little bit smaller. Let's go that size maybe, a bit smaller still. Okay, we'll go for that. We'll use that as the size. So out of the roll, what are you up to this evening then? Or this morning, or this afternoon? Whichever time of day it may be for you. You want anything nice? Okay, a little bit of manoeuvring here. So I want this tail just to come, I want it to come down pretty much where it is. That's pretty damn perfect actually. I'm going to bring it closer this way so it touches the material. I was just about to say touches the cloth, but that means something else to me entirely. And is not the intended. It's not the intended thing I was after. Okay, so I'm going to taper the end, make it into a point. I'm going to split the tail off. I'm going to dynamesh the tail with a decent bit of resolution. Smooth it all out. And I'm just going to go down from the top to the bottom, doing some hair strokes on it. Ah, wow. Well done. How'd you get on with her? How did you find the assembly on them, actually? Because I know some people got on all right with having to do the having to kind of assemble the models themselves. But at the time when I did that, I think there was a huge level of naivety around people with model kits. So people either assumed you were building it in Mesh Mixer or you couldn't assemble the figure. And a few people really freaked out when I told them to just use super glue, print the pieces separate and just use super glue to stick them together. Like the concept of literally fixing up a model just freaked them out. So yeah, interested how you got on with them. Just in talks about them at the moment with the wife, because we're just doing the new website. And with the new website, we are rolling out all of our STLs and resin models again to go through direct sale. Oops. And the problem it kind of lends us, we don't really know if it's worthwhile selling them as a kit, like separate pieces that people assemble, choose the configuration and get the pieces. Or if I should just do a load of preset, ready to go models. The digital ones isn't an issue, we can sell them digitally as modular all day long. But actually, as resin models, I think people would probably rather buy them just ready designed, so they haven't got a faff. It's going to be easy for us to kind of produce them as well, because we're going to be obviously running them out on our printers here. So yeah, just interested to see what you thought about them, really. I was going to do a few little strands here. So these are just lazy mouse turned on, start at the top and work down. A little bit of overlap. We're going to raise the intensity on them so there's a little bit more texture. Oops, let's do that one away. Ah, FDM. How did you get on with FDM? I'd love to see a photo of that. You know, if you've got if you're on my Discord channel, if you can fling a picture up of that model done in FDM, I'd love to see how it turned out. I've never seen many of my figures done on an FDM printer, to be honest. And those level up ones are really not anything I ever thought would be FDM compatible. So the fact you've done it is an achievement in itself. So kudos for that. I've seen the very tempted by the new is it the Anycubic, is it the Cobra? No, it wasn't the Cobra. What was it? The Mars one, the new Elegoo. The new Elegoo FDM, that looks absolutely fantastic in terms of print quality. I saw a post from Ross at Fohammer the other day, and he'd been doing a couple of building prints. No, was it buildings? He'd done a couple of larger scale prints there. Busts it was a Wolverine bust, and you'd never known it was FDM. There was no layer lines or anything that were visible on it. It was absolutely beautiful. And he's going to go and try a few of my models on it as well, to see if he can actually get a good finish on miniatures that have always been intended to be done in resin. So yeah, I can imagine it'd take a lot of tweaks. I really want to kind of grab an FDM printer for doing like larger scale terrain with. But I still want to make sure I can get good quality out of it, because I just don't want to have to deal with the layer lines and all the ridges and stuff all over it. I don't care if I have to print like a really fine Z resolution or anything like that. But oh, it was an Elegoo It was a new Elegoo one. Let me just find the. I'll find the post that he put up. So it was the faux hammer blog. Right, it's a faux hammer. Here we go. So this one here, this Wolverine bust he's got here. So this is done on an FDM printer. So it's the Elegoo Neptune 3 Pro. So he hasn't messed with the settings at all. This was literally straight off the bat, straight out of the box. Load a model in, generate some supports, and click print. And I would suggest that looks pretty damn good. I mean, I'm seeing leather texture and everything in here, which is, and I can only really see any layer lines just around the top of the head, but not in what I would class as a significant way. I think that's entirely passable as a high quality. Yeah, I think it would be elegoo.com. Where are you based? What country do you live in? Because if you're UK based, I can probably give you a couple of suppliers that'll or to be honest, you might want to try like something like Fep Shop in Europe or 3D Jake for the UK. Even Amazon actually. I bet Amazon's got Amazon tend to do all the Elegoo stuff, don't they? So, but the quality of that, I mean, that's pretty damn good, isn't it, for a print? I don't know, is that done on it as well? Yeah, so this terrain's been done on it. You can see a lot more layer lines on this. This one doesn't look quite as clean, but it's still very passable for terrain. Okay, so yeah, if you're US based, you probably, I mean, Amazon.com is probably your best bet. Let's have a little gander actually. See if Amazon are stocking them. .3D Jake, so they're the UK distributor. They're not expensive, you know. Elegoo.com, $184, $184, $210 with tax, which I don't think that's bad at all. Because I'm pretty sure I paid more than that for a. You're supposed to be working there. I'm pretty sure I paid about that much for an Ender 3 Pro in a flat pack box a while back. So, which I'll hasten to add, I sold on without ever actually opening the box. But yeah, I don't know, it's a weird one, isn't it? Technology's moved on so far, I'm never sure what to expect of FDM these days. If you look at the advancements in the resin printers, I'd love to say that the FDM's keeping up with it and it's advancing the print quality. The Neptune seems to kind of be proving that theory right. So yeah, I'd like to say there's a lot more going to be coming out soon. But yeah, thanks to Ross at Faux Hammer. You want to give him a follow actually if you're not already following it. He was very much Games Workshop Warhammer centric originally, and then he's kind of diverted off to doing a lot more stuff about 3D printing in the hobby and miniatures and stuff. So he gets all of like the new printers in and tests them. If they don't supply him with samples from the brand, he goes and just buys them and tests them anyway. So yeah, 400. That's kind of what you expect. I mean, I'll be honest. When I bought my first 3D printer, it was 2015, 2016. I bought my first 3D printer, and it was it's an Asiga Pico Pro, Asiga Pico HD2, and it's a small dental grade DLP printer, and even by current standards, it's really, really good. But print quality wise, I would say the current like Anycubic DLPs are about £700. The Anycubic D2 is probably about on par quality wise, or probably better than, if I'm honest, what the Pico does. And I paid £11,000 for the Pico, which back then was probably around about probably the sharp end of about $15,000. And let's say now you can get like a Frozen Sonic Mini 4K, which almost gets to the same level of quality, for like 300 quid. And it's crazy that in the space of like what 5 years, 5-6 years, the technology's come on that far, that, you know, what I previously paid a huge amount of money for is now available as a consumer level that you can just have sitting on your desktop for hobbies. You know, that was unfathomable kind of like 5 years back. So yeah, it's all weird stuff, isn't it, man? It's all weird. Right, on that note, I'm going to wrap up here. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to go and look after my little lady who's not well. And I'm just going to say thank you to everybody who tuned in and caught this, or is watching it on catch up later. And yeah, Friday I'll be finishing this lovely lady off, and we'll have another one of the Crystal Collapse Minis ready to rock. Okay, Art of the Roll, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully you can get a bit of work done. Don't work too hard, mate. Yeah, thanks again, and I'll catch up with you later, guys. You take it easy.